Emotional addictions cause us to stop growing our mind through to maturity. The chemical peptide releases of immature emotion are a natural biological learning tool. Due to the nature of the cells as a biological nervous system, it's very easy to form biological addiction to any chemicals released into the bloodstream. Commonly, we all understand this process through public education about illicit drug use. The chemical peptides of emotion are equally as addictive as any chemical originally foreign to the biological self. During social interaction, we allow interaction of the life energy of our minds. We notice these energies during every real-time moment of social interaction with another. The thoughts in this natural process initiate minor chemical peptide releases into the bloodstream in an effort to apply extra meaning, colour, to the memory being created. Simple natural exchanges of social thought in most cases do not sustain enough chemical peptide releases over a long enough time to cause serious chemical addiction in the cells of the nervous system. We will of course, however, physically feel the loss of someone close to us as the cells of our biological nervous system are forced to endure the withdrawal effects from specific chemical peptide releases that resulted from sharing our mind with that person. Most people afterward, long afterward, appreciate the learning and growth stimulated by the natural passing of a loved one. Addiction to particular chemical peptide releases must involve the individual mind itself creating the energy dynamics necessary to initiate the chemical peptide response into the bloodstream, rather than relying on external influences to apply the consistent energy required. Clearly, thinking a particular thought over and over again would truly become tiresome quickly enough. But if we simply apply the general thought to become part of the core attitude of our regular mind, then we can ensure a smooth and constant release of the chemical we require, because the core attitude will cause the thought to become consistently present in the energy activity of our mind without applying the effort to thinking about it continuously. Therefore, we learn that by applying a consistent thought to our core attitude, we can guarantee that a steady supply of the chemical peptide is always available to the bloodstream. The addicted nervous system cells will not need to endure the uncomfortable process of chemical withdrawal once we learn that we ourselves can apply an attitude consistently to our mind and initiate a steady chemical peptide release. Great minds have always left simple pieces of advice in the collective consciousness of the world that has withstood the test of time. Such advice is often concerned with the problem of emotional addiction, and as such includes thinking strategies to avoid this problem. Think, for example, of sins. Sins are not only about behavior, but also about thought and attitude, life energy. There are many attitudes that if we hold in the core position of our mind consistently will cause a chemical peptide addiction. The 7 deadly sins are examples of attitudes that will immediately cause our perception life energy to revert to that of the immature mind, while also unbalancing our immediate creation of consciousness with the focused effort required to initiate and sustain the chemical peptide response in one's own bloodstream. Once addicted, the mind is caused to be placed in a perpetual cycle of unbalanced consciousness, since the only way to self-initiate a chemical peptide release into the bloodstream is to apply single-minded focused effort, and in doing so block the natural flow of life energy through the entire chakra system. Once the mind is using the energy of a biological generator that has stern emotional parameters surrounding the refinement of the perception energy used to base the future creations of consciousness on, it will become what is commonly described as asleep or brainwashed. Think of the difference between the mind of a 10-year-old child compared to the mind of his grandmother. Both will be able to clearly recount the story of their visit, but Grandma's memory will be far richer. Under the influence of emotional addiction, the mind will no longer draw logical conclusions based on the most reliable information available at that moment, and will instead draw conclusions and make decisions based on abstract information from the limited experiential memory only. Fear uses a different method to influence the information available to a mind. Rather than attracting the mind to continue refining regularly low levels of perception through emotional addiction, fear simply repels the mind's attention away from ever constructing a particular thought or idea to begin with. The fear response is the most unpleasant chemical peptide release we naturally biologically experience. We'll instinctively avoid using any thoughts or attitudes in our regular mind which could potentially self-initiate a fear response into our bloodstream. So who decides which thoughts in our mind will initiate a fear response? We do ourselves, of course. How? Need. Our human mind is far more powerful than many of us allow ourselves to realize. The energy of what we think and how we think it has real and true effect on not only our own health and well-being, but also in the wider energy environment. Our subconscious records and remembers information from all of our moments. Survival is a paramount concern to our biological selves, and as such, the biological self is designed to assume that the individual mind is of the same opinion. If we describe something as a need in our mind, the idea is recorded and maintained in the archives of the subconscious mind with an equal level of priority to the need for survival. The mind will retain the information until such time as we consciously remove the need. Desires, on the other hand, are dismissed to memory once the conscious mind has moved on, like all regular thoughts and ideas. The longer a need stays in place, the more standing it holds in the subconscious mind, and the more difficult it becomes to remove. The fear response is a biological safety mechanism designed to alert us to rare moments when the continuation of our heartbeat is in danger. If during perception we learn that the immediate environmental conditions are a threat to our physical survival, the consciousness will be forced to focus thinking purely on the threat until our mind can agree that the threat to our survival has been eliminated. The natural trigger that initiates the chemical fear response into the bloodstream is the threat to any need. During perception, the chakra system, along with the other 5 senses, scans the energy environment and adds the information collected to the focused energy activity of consciousness, including the subconscious. If the mind identifies information that signifies a threat to a need, the energy center involved will immediately, without requesting permission from the conscious mind, initiate a fear response into the bloodstream in order to call the mind to fix the life-threatening problem. Let's look at a simple and familiar example of the way we can trigger a fear response in our own bloodstream due to a self-assigned need.